being an Uber driver isn't as simple as it seems. People think it's all about picking someone up, dropping them off, maybe hearing a bad breakup story or a wild bar tale along the way. But there's a lot more to it, especially when you drive at night. I've been doing this job for over a decade. 10 long years of gas station coffee, half-eaten sandwiches on the dashboard, and strange voices crackling through the radio when there's nothing but static. 10 years of headlights slicing through fog like a knife, trying to see just a little farther than what the darkness wants to show me. And I only work nights. Not because I love the quiet or because I enjoy watching the moon hang heavy over empty streets. It's not for the mystery or the peace or even the solitude. It's because I have a family, a wife, 2 kids. During the day, I'm busy being a husband, a father, a guy who fixes the leaking sink and helps with math homework. But when the sun goes down and they're tucked into bed, I drive. Some people say the night is when the city sleeps. That's a lie. The night is when it breathes differently. It inhales tension. It exhales secrets. And sometimes, just sometimes, it whispers things into the ears of people like me. People who ride those empty veins of the city, ferrying strangers who don't always seem normal. See, people think the scariest thing about driving at night is getting robbed, or picking up some drunk who won't stop talking, or worse, someone dangerous. But they never consider the others, the quiet ones, the ones who sit too still, the ones whose pickup addresses don't exist when you check the GPS, the ones who smell like river water, or smoke, or nothing at all, the ones who don't show up in your ride history the next day. I've had more strange rides than I can count, things that still keep me up after my shift ends, staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps I shouldn't hear. But the 5 rides I'm about to tell you about, they didn't just scare me, they changed me. Changed the way I look at my job, at the people I pick up, at the idea of what's real and what rides with us even when we're alone. So buckle in, turn off the lights, and listen carefully, because these are the stories that made me wonder if the worst thing you can pick up at night isn't a person, it's a presence. It happened on the kind of October night that feels older than the year itself. The fog had been rolling in since sundown, thick and slow, like breath from something massive and sleeping just beyond the city skyline. Streetlights blinked as I passed them, their halos swallowed by the mist. It was just past 2 a.m., and the dashboard clock cast a faint green glow over my hands as they gripped the wheel. I was dead tired. I'd already done a long string of pickups, drunk students, a couple mid-argument who didn't say a single word the whole ride, and one guy who left behind a plastic bag full of garlic bread that made my car smell like an Italian funeral. I was debating whether to call it a night when I got the ping. Pickup, Central Station. 1 passenger. The request was close, just a few blocks away. I pulled up under one of those yellowed, flickering sodium lamps that throws more shadow than light. The station itself was empty, no trains scheduled for another hour. The silence around me wasn't peaceful. It was loaded, like the air was waiting. Then I saw her. She stepped out from the darkness behind the bench like she'd been sculpted from the fog itself. A woman in her 40s, maybe older, wearing a navy blue coat that hung off her shoulders like it once belonged to someone else. Her hair was pinned back, tight and neat, but her eyes looked like they hadn't closed in years. She didn't ask if I was her driver, didn't look at the license plate. She just opened the rear door, got in, and softly shut it behind her. "Where to?" I asked, watching her through the mirror. 308 Pineview Lane, she said. It's off Maple near the cul-de-sac. Her voice was quiet but clear, almost too calm, I tapped the address into my GPS and pulled away from the curb. The drive started out silent, not the comfortable kind, but the kind where you can hear the silence. Every sound felt louder than it should be. The rubber of the tires on the wet pavement, the slight rattle of a forgotten cup in the console, the faint breathing from the back seat. 5 minutes in, she spoke again, not louder, just closer. "He doesn't like the light, please don't turn around." I blinked. "Excuse me." "He doesn't like being seen, just keep your eyes on the road." There was no emotion in her voice, no urgency, just a factual, bone-dry warning. I glanced at the mirror instinctively and caught myself. Her eyes weren't on me anymore. They were staring out the window, her hands now folded tight on her lap. I wanted to laugh it off, tell her it wasn't funny, but I didn't, because something had changed. The temperature dropped. My breath clouded the inside of the windshield. My fingers tingled on the wheel, the way they do when you've been outside too long in the cold. And then I felt it. A pressure behind my seat, like someone had just shifted their weight. The car dipped slightly. I heard the softest rustle, but she hadn't moved. I reached for the rearview mirror out of reflex, then remembered what she said. So I turned it away. My heart was hammering now. We drove for 15 more minutes, in total silence. When we finally reached her house, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door, stepped out, and then, just before closing it, leaned in and said, "He'll leave once I'm inside. Just keep your eyes forward. And whatever you hear, don't look back." She shut the door gently. I heard her footsteps on the walkway. The porch light flickered on, casting her shadow in 3 different directions. She went inside, and then, click. The rear passenger door unlocked and opened. I didn't turn, I couldn't. I sat still, eyes locked on the windshield, watching the fog press closer and closer to the glass like it was trying to peek in. Then I heard breathing, small, uneven, just behind my head. Then a sigh, childlike, sad, as if whoever, or whatever, was back there wasn't angry, just tired of being seen or remembered. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles cracked. Eventually, the door shut, not slammed, not pulled, just gently clicked closed. When I finally turned, the seat was empty. But on the fogged window, a handprint, tiny, delicate, 5 fingers, pressed into the glass from the inside. Some rides feel off before they even begin. That night, I was sitting outside a 24-hour diner, sipping cold coffee from a paper cup that had started to taste more like cardboard than caffeine. My phone buzzed. Ping. Pickup from the Lyndale Hotel, a place I hadn't thought about in years. I stared at the address for a moment. That building was practically condemned the last time I'd passed it. I almost ignored the request. Almost. But curiosity, and the thought of a few more bucks, got the better of me. I pulled up in front of the hotel. No one was waiting at the curb. The lobby was dark except for a single red exit sign that cast a low glow on cracked tile floors and peeling wallpaper. It didn't look like a place that still operated. Just as I started to think it was a false ping, the front doors creaked open. A man stepped out. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 4 inches, but thin, like his body hadn't caught up to its own skeleton. He wore a gray trench coat buttoned all the way to the neck, and a dark briefcase swung lightly from one bony hand. He walked like someone who wasn't used to being watched. Fluid, quiet, precise. He opened the back door and sat down without a word. I looked at him in the mirror. "Evening, where you headed?" His voice was smooth, controlled. Fisher Tech Park on the east side. That place was at least 20 minutes away and completely closed after business hours. I didn't ask questions. I started driving. We rode in silence for a while. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the occasional slap of wet tires against the asphalt. Then, about 3 minutes in, he spoke. "Michael, you've had a rough week?" I didn't respond at first. Because he'd said my name, I hadn't introduced myself. The app shows the passenger your name, sure, but it's rare for people to use it, especially like that. Calm, certain, like he wasn't reading it, like he knew it. I cleared my throat. "Do I know you?" No answer, but I saw him smile slightly in the mirror. Then he said, "Your wife's birthday was yesterday. She didn't like the lilies. She wanted roses. You thought they'd be more original, but she hates the smell." My heart dropped into my stomach. I hadn't posted about that. Hadn't told anyone about that fight, not even my brother. "How do you know that?" He didn't turn his head. He just kept staring out the window, like the night itself was talking through him. "You should be more careful at intersections," he murmured. "Don't trust yellow lights, they lie." "All right, that's enough," I said, trying to steady my voice. "If this is some kind of prank, it's not funny." He smiled wider now. I could feel it, even though I wasn't looking at him anymore. "Next Thursday," he said, "you should stay home." That was it. I pulled over hard enough to make the tires bark on the pavement. "Get out." He didn't move. I turned around, ready to yell, to shove him out if I had to, and the back seat was empty. Door closed, seat undisturbed, like he'd never been there. My blood ran ice cold. I scrambled to check the app. No passenger history, no drop-off location, no fare, just a ghost ping. 3 nights later, I called out sick for the first time in months. That Thursday night, I was home on the couch watching reruns when my phone buzzed. A fellow driver had taken my usual shift. He ran a yellow light at the 3rd and Jefferson intersection, the same route I usually took around 3 a.m. A garbage truck blew through the red, killed him instantly. I don't take pickups from the Lyndale anymore, and I never ignore a yellow light. It was the kind of night that felt like it had no end. The city had already gone quiet. That special kind of quiet that only happens after 4 a.m., when even the night owls have gone to sleep and the streets hum with the low breath of machines at rest. My shift was almost over, and I was fantasizing about my bed. I even reached to turn off the app, but right before I hit the button, I got a ping. Pickup, Orchard Hollow Road, Rural Zone. I hesitated. Orchard Hollow was farmland. Nothing but cornfields, broken fences, and fog thick enough to erase your high beams. The kind of place where the GPS gets confused and the phone signal drops like it's scared to be alone out there. But the payout was high, surge pricing, and I was behind on rent. So I took it. The drive was long and unsettling. The main roads gave way to gravel, and then to dirt. My headlights caught nothing but tall grass and the occasional crooked tree leaning in like it was eavesdropping. Even the stars above seemed hesitant to shine too bright over that part of the county. The pin was dropped in front of a decaying farmhouse. It leaned like it had grown tired of standing. The windows were dark. No porch light, no car in the drive. It looked abandoned. I parked, waited. Just when I started to wonder if it was a prank, she appeared. She stepped out from behind the side of the house, barefoot, wearing a white dress soaked through from the knees down. Her skin was pale and reflective in the headlights. Her hair hung in wet ropes around her face. I couldn't even see her eyes at first, just shadows beneath her brow. She didn't ask if I was her driver. She opened the door, sat in the back seat, didn't say a word. I turned around slightly. "Miss, you okay?" "Home," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You'll know when we're close." I didn't like that, not one bit. But I started driving anyway. We didn't take the route back toward town. She directed me with quiet instructions. Left here, right at the dead tree, straight through where the road had been washed out years ago. No streetlights, no signs, no other cars. Just endless fog and silence so loud my ears started ringing. The smell in the car changed. At first it was earth, damp, cold dirt. But then it was lake water, still and stale. The kind that clings to clothing and settles into your skin. And still, she said nothing. Just watched out the window, her mouth a tight, sad line. 20 minutes passed like hours. Then she spoke again. "Stop here." We were in front of a lake, black as obsidian. Not a ripple, not a sound, no houses, no lights, no docks, just water and trees and silence. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were too large for her face, too bright in the dark. "He's still down there," she said. "They never looked for him. They never believed me." Then she was gone. She didn't open the door, didn't slide out, just disappeared. The seat was still indented, the buckle was still fastened, but she was nowhere. I got out, legs trembling, and walked to the edge of the lake. The air was wrong, heavy and motionless, like it was waiting for me to speak. That's when I saw the ripples, spreading outward from the center of the water, small, like someone had just slipped beneath the surface. I left without looking back. The next morning, I filed a police report. I didn't know what else to do. A week later, they dredged the lake. They found 2 bodies, a teenage boy and girl, missing since 1996. Everyone had assumed they ran off together. The case had gone cold decades ago. But the girl, she matched the photo in the old report. Same hair, same dress, same name on the rideshare app. Only thing is, the app says she never requested a ride, and my car still smells faintly of lake water even now. Some rides are strange. Others are impossible to explain. But then, there are the ones that repeat. The first time I got the ping, it was a Friday, 2:17 a.m. on the dot, and our pickup was in an alley I'd never noticed before, squeezed between a closed bar and a condemned apartment complex on the east side. The kind of alley you don't walk down unless you've got nowhere else to go. I pulled up slowly, my headlights cutting into the narrow brick corridor. There he was. A guy in a black hoodie, head down, hands in his pockets. His posture was stiff, unmoving. He looked like a mannequin until he moved. One smooth step out of the shadows and into the car. He didn't say a word, just sat directly behind me. "Evening," I offered, trying not to sound uneasy. "Where to?" Nothing. The app didn't give me a drop-off address, just a gray blank space where the destination should have been. I tapped it, refreshed, nothing. The timer was counting. The trip was active. I put the car in drive and waited to see if he'd speak up. He didn't. He just stared out the window, breathing shallowly, like someone who wasn't used to having lungs. I figured I'd drive a few blocks and ask again. After about 10 minutes of silent cruising through the industrial part of town, he suddenly leaned forward. I caught a glimpse of his face in the rearview mirror, pale, angular, and wrong, like a person drawn from memory. Familiar, but off. Then, in a voice so low I felt it in my spine, he said, "Here's fine. No landmarks, no house, just an overgrown lot behind an abandoned church." He opened the door, stepped out, and walked into the shadows. I waited, watched, but he never came back out the other side. Weird, but not terrifying, until it happened again. The next Friday, 2:17 a.m., same ping, same alley, same guy, same everything. I accepted the ride, heart thudding, half expecting a glitch or maybe a prank. But it was him. Identical clothes, same silent stare, same pale face in the mirror. This time, I asked questions. He didn't answer, just wrote in silence, and said the exact same thing when we arrived. "Here's fine." No variation in tone, no delay, like he was reading a line. The third week, I decided I needed answers. I picked him up again, drove the same path, but when he stepped out behind the church, I didn't leave. I turned off my lights, waited 2 minutes, then quietly got out and followed. He disappeared behind the building. There was a metal basement door half covered in ivy and rust. I crept up to it. The air smelled like burning plastic or hair. I placed my hand on the handle, and it was warm, from the inside. Then I heard something, footsteps, not his, many, coming up fast. I bolted, got back to my car and drove like hell. I didn't sleep that day, couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. The next Friday, 2:17 a.m., the ping came again. This time, I declined. About 30 minutes later, I saw a news bulletin online. A rideshare driver had gone missing. Last seen picking up a passenger from the east side. Same alley. His car was found a week later, engine running, doors locked from the inside. No one in the driver's seat. But the back? The seatbelt was buckled, and the seat was warm, like someone had just left. Some passengers talk too much, some talk too little, and some don't talk at all until it's too late. It was a slow Wednesday night, that middle-of-the-week dead-air type of shift where your only company is a static radio station and the glow of dashboard lights. I was cruising near the southern edge of town when I got a ping. Gas station pickup, just outside city limits. I pulled in. There she was, a teenage girl, standing under a broken streetlight that clicked and buzzed like it was struggling to stay alive. She was thin, with long black hair tucked inside an oversized hoodie that looked like it belonged to someone else. Her jeans were ripped at the knees, not for style, for wear. She looked lost, not just in place, but in time. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, they were full of something. Not sadness, not fear, something older. She didn't look at me when she got in. Just opened the back door, slid into the seat, and closed it gently behind her. "Hey," I said, "where we headed?" She gave an address in the suburbs, a normal one, a nice area with trimmed lawns and 2-car garages. I nodded, tapped it into the GPS, and pulled away. At first, the ride was uneventful. She didn't speak. No phone out, no fidgeting, just stared straight ahead. But as we reached a fork in the road, GPS blinking a soft arrow to the right, she suddenly leaned forward. "Go left," she whispered. "Even if it says, 'Do not enter,' just go left." I frowned. "Left takes us away from your destination." She didn't reply. "Please, just left. Trust me." There was something in her voice that made the hair on my arms rise. Not fear, not authority, just certainty. Like she wasn't asking me for a favor, she was letting me in on something sacred. So I turned left. The street darkened almost immediately. The streetlights vanished. Even the stars overhead looked more distant. The asphalt narrowed, then cracked, then became a dirt road winding between tall, shadowy trees. The air grew heavy, my headlights flickered just once. Then the silence came. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that presses on your eardrums that feels like it's trying to pull sound away from the world. She sat back again. Her voice, when she spoke next, was barely audible. "You shouldn't have followed me here." My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and she wasn't there. Seat empty. No sound of a door, no shift in weight, gone. I slammed the brakes, looked around, woods, nothing but woods and dirt, no way to turn around, no reception. Then, as suddenly as it began, the road changed. I blinked and found myself parked. Not in the woods, not even on a road, in front of my own house. It was 4:03 a.m. My gas tank was full. The odometer read the same mileage as before the trip, but in my cup holder folded neatly was a torn sheet of notebook paper. 4 words, written in shaky pencil, "Thanks for the detour." I never took that route again, and I never saw her face. But sometimes, when I stop at that same gas station late at night, I swear I can feel eyes watching me from under the flickering streetlight. I've told you 5 stories. 5 rides that I'll never forget. No matter how many nights pass, no matter how many streets I drive down trying to convince myself that what happened was just exhaustion, or coincidence, or imagination. But I know better, because I was there. I heard the breathing when no one was in the car. I saw the handprints. I felt the weight shift in the back seat when the seatbelt clicked by itself. And if you've listened to this far, you probably know what I'm about to say. Not every ride ends where it's supposed to. Sometimes you pick up more than a person. Sometimes you drop off less than you started with. And sometimes you take something home with you. I still drive, night after night. Not because I want to, because I feel like if I stop, whatever's out there might finally catch up. People like to believe that the world is neatly divided, and the living and the dead, the known and the unknown. But that line, that boundary, it's thinner than you think. Every time you open your door for a stranger, you're rolling the dice. And every time someone gets into your car and doesn't speak, doesn't blink, doesn't leave behind a name or a shadow, you wonder if they were ever really there at all. So, next time you call for a ride, late at night, ask yourself, do you know who's driving? And more importantly, do they know who you are? Thanks for listening. Drive safe. And if you're ever on the road at 2:17 a.m., don't stop, not for anything.